Dun, dun, dun. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Sorry, I do that at the start of every show. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Check 1 2. Now, I have a very special man sat next to me. I'm going to introduce you to him very shortly. I've been more excited about this interview than he knows, because what this man does for a living, I think, is possibly one of the most important jobs, and I mean that amongst media, amongst TV and film. And without this man, a lot of movies or TV shows that you've seen would look very, very different. And I'm really excited to get into how you got into this job and what it entails, because it's a really difficult thing. Let's get straight in. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the amazing Tarquin Shaw-Young. Woohoo! Thank you so much for joining me, Tarquin.
You're most welcome.
Really appreciate you being here. I've done a lot of research on you. We're straight in, no messing about. Really. And I know you've done a lot of things, and you've been in some really important roles in a lot of aspects of entertainment. I know that you were past president of the Agents Association, is that correct?
It was, yes.
So I do want to touch on that, because that sounds like a ridiculously crazy job. But one thing I want you to do, first of all, is for anybody out there that doesn't understand, let's start with your job title. What would you say is your title? What do you do?
Essentially, I'm an agent, but I'm also a casting agent. So I've always sort of had a foot in both camps, as long as I've been an agent. So a lot of people come to me directly to cast children, young performers, adults in productions. They come to me for consultancy, to know all about the aspects, if they're putting a film on or a play, to know what it entails having children. It's, particularly with young performers, it's not just about having a child turn up, do the show. You have licensing, chaperoning, legal ramifications when working with children in film, TV, any aspects of theatre as well.
Oh, I guess then, like, there's a requirement that says they're not allowed to work this many hours in the day, and they're
working
only allowed to do this.
And
you have to whip them into shape, get them up early.
Or not, depending on how long. It's on a sort of sliding scale, depending on how old they are and how many hours they can work, and so you have a lot of sort of body doubles and things, so it takes the pressures off. So there's a whole different sort of world for children, young performers versus adults.
Wow. So a casting agent. Now, I know that so I'm quite new to this whole TV and movie kind of genre, right? I've just finished my first TV show, and only then, and this is really bad, so I apologise anybody out there that's in this industry. I'll call myself a muggle, right? As a muggle, when I watch a TV show, I watch these actors and think, wow, great job. And then the credits roll, and you see director, producer, and in my head, the director was the most important person, because that's the first name you see, and everybody knows the director's name.
Absolutely.
Directors are world famous. I didn't realise that one of the most important jobs is producer. They're the people that make the entire show.
Yeah.
They put everything together. They oversee everything. But then there was casting agent or casting director, however you want to say it. What a really difficult job. So my first question is this. Do they come to you and say, we're looking for this actor, we need... do they come with a specific name, or do they say, we want somebody who's this big with grey hair that can whistle? Do they give you like a list of requirements that they want, and you have to go and find that person?
I suppose there's various different ways that a production is cast. I mean, the top end will be your budget. That dictates who you can afford. I think particularly with COVID, you've seen a lot of films that actors were making where they just wanted to work. So perhaps they weren't commanding the fees that they were usually commanding. But sort of COVID aside and pandemic aside, it does start with the budget, and there will be a wish list. I mean, the director, if he's in place at that point, maybe will have some preferred actors he'd like to work with. That's down to what I call sort of horse trading, individual negotiations with agents. And you've got to be careful with some of the certainly the bigger names. I mean, obviously I deal a lot with children and young performers primarily. So, I have children who've done lots of different things, but there tends to be a higher turnover of children in this industry. So they might just do one particular film, have a really good career. Having that longevity within the industry for children is because children change, but they're very much of the moment. So when you look at people like Daniel Radcliffe and Jamie Bell, some of these actors who have worked as children and then continue to work within the industry. There's such a small minority, but from a sort of casting point of view, you're essentially you get a character breakdown. Hopefully the script's been written, although that's always been fine-tuned, and you get characters thrown in sometimes the day before the production shoots. So it's really just about, some will have a wish list, as I say. Others, it's really all about getting the right person for the job and looking at who fit. I mean, a director will have his own idea. As an agent, perhaps I'll have some clients myself. I think, well, they would be good. Or if you're spreading the net further, you throw the net out and see what comes in. And often it's thousands upon thousands of applications that you're getting sent to you.
It's a big responsibility. So I want to touch on something you said. Hopefully by now at this point they have a director. So Are you saying sometimes you have to cast actors and they don't even have a director at this point?
Sometimes, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. I didn't realise that. And do you ever get to read the script? So do you get to know the character before you start choosing?
Sometimes I do. I mean, it depends whether, corporate stuff, not so much, but particularly if I'm dealing with children, I insist on seeing the script every time, because if you're not used to working with children, people will write a script, and you should always have a child-friendly script. So if there's bad language in the script, that has to be rewritten for a child, and careful producers and directors should, if there's bad language or there's scenes of a disturbing nature, that should be shot with the children not even in the room, or the language is overdubbed, or it's cut. So if you look at a good piece of sort of perhaps graphic TV that's got children involved, if you watch it carefully, you'll see that the director has very carefully intercut the children whilst those scenes or language is not being used. And if you start to look at it, you think, oh yes, because children, they're innocents, they shouldn't be subjected to things, and everything has to be justified, particularly with children younger before, in my opinion. So there's a sort of moral guidance you have to give, and if someone's not used to working with children, then you have to think, well, is that appropriate for a child to do that? And there's always a way for any scene to be rewritten or recut, or so there's a lot to think about, not just about is the child right for the job. It is about this sort of duty of care that you have when someone comes to me. I'll look at the script and say, yeah, that's great, but it's not just the script, it's the directions in between. It's just looking at what really does sort of work and what doesn't.
Wow. And what about those times when I mean, there are countless movies I've seen out there that are 18 plus. You're only able to see it if you're an 18-year-old, but there's a kid in there that has to say a rude word. How do you get over that? I mean, do they actually say it? Are the parents all right with it? Or because I've heard a theory, somebody once told me they don't say the word, they say something that looks similar, and then they dub it.
So what I was saying about child-friendly script, yes. Some films, no. Some films, I mean, at the end of the day, you provide a moral compass.
Yes.
Parents make the ultimate decision about what their child can and can't do. And I think if there is a particular way that a child can say a swear word that is justifiable, for me, it's got to pass a few tests. Is it justifiable for that child to swear? And if it's not, and if they overdub it, okay, and that does happen, yes, they'll say another word. They will shoot the script, and they will sometimes have someone else dub that word in, because the word, they'll use a different word, and there's lots of different techniques. I think more so sometimes that radar is slipping a bit because there's such a high turnover of stuff. I'm not sure that certain guidelines are adhering when using children. But if the parents is happy at the end of the day for their child to say that, to be involved in that scene, we can only advise and guide and say this is what we think. Everyone has a duty of care. The director, the writer, the producer, they should all be thinking, what is the impact on the child? And that's generally there 95% of the time, I would think. But yes, there's going to be times where that does slip through the net.
Wow. Of course, I guess there is,
Guerrilla TV, people making stuff on the hoof, improvised television, you just don't know what's coming out. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a movie once where actually, I don't want to say the name just in case I get copyrighted for it, but where there's a guy who plays a granddad and he has a little child who's the grandson, and this kid has an earpiece in, and they're scripting it live, so they're just telling this kid what to say, and some of the language on that was, I mean, ridiculous, but it was very funny, and he was a great actor, this kid. The range of for me, a great actor, I always thought took experience, kids, people that have done it from a young age. So it must be really difficult getting a young kid who's so talented so quick. I mean, what is it? Is it kind of like a mixed bag? Are they all brilliant?
It is a mixed bag. I mean,
there's that saying, isn't there? Never work with children and animals.
There
like
is.
It must be difficult.
There is. I mean, animals. I've not worked with many animals. I have to say, the odd one. They usually have their own trailer and are very well looked after. But with children. Talent is any child. There is a role for every child. I say, whether they're good, whether they're bad, whether they're with children, it tends to be more of a street cast sometimes. So you'll see a breakdown looking for an 8-year-old child, must have TV experience. Well, that's going to narrow your field down quite a bit. So define experience. Yes, they used to where the camera is, where the lights are. They're not phased by being in the studio. And when I run a lot of audition experience session workshops, which just prepares children a little bit, so they're not sort of phased by a camera being there or people throwing questions at them and that kind of thing. So, yes, there are naturally talented children. There are children who do have experience, and those do tend to get more work because, they've been in a feature film. People know because of the money riding on it that they're going to be okay. But most commercials will have a backup child, and in COVID times, every commercial has a COVID backup for actors, for children. So there's lots of different roles within that sphere of working with children and young performers.
And I think you said something there that I find really interesting, because this industry can be really it can be really hard. I know as an actor, you can go to as many auditions as you like, and every time you get turned down, there's a part of you that thinks, why didn't they like me? And I guess the truth of the matter is, it's not you they don't like. It's just that's not what they're looking for.
Absolutely.
Like, you already have a vision in mind, and you'll get 10 kids that all look roughly the same, but there's one that you're looking for that has that right thing. That must be a difficult thing to teach a child. Don't take it to heart, right?
The way I sort of sell the audition process to children is, if you were casting commercial, you might get 5,000 CVs coming through your door. Now, there has to be a way of you very quickly picking out the students that you need.
So you don't just go, this one, that one, that one.
No, you have to apply diligence and longevity of doing the job of what you're looking for. If it's just me when I'm working as an agent and I'm putting children forward for jobs, I mean, I know most of all of my actors and young performers, so I know who's capable of doing what. But you're applying different checks and balances. Now, if you're going along to an audition as an actor, as a young performer, you generally, if it's a commercial, you're probably in a group of about 50. So already you've gone from, I'm giving 5,000 it's between 3,000 and 5,000, sometimes more.
Wow.
You're already in an incredibly small pot of actors.
Yeah.
So you've already done brilliantly to get there. You've already sort of, something it might be your CV, your look. You're already there in the big sort of sphere of things, and so the audition is. I will say, look at the audition as a whole thing. Everything else is a bonus, because, as you know, as an actor, you might have the way it works now is self-tape, which is good, saves you having to schlep from all around the country. You do a self-tape. That's a good way. That's a level playing field. Right person for the right job, not just because you live in the M25, which is
of course. Do you take into account then, like, and I apologise for stopping you, do you ever take into account, because I think this is something that's important for people to know, if there's any young actors out there, you're not then looking at the quality of the footage, are you?
No.
You don't care if it's shot on a mobile phone?
No. And that's another thing. People think audition, it's got to be, give it your best shot. I always say, with any audition, do it 5 times. Watch it back. Because casting directors will, there's a few 3 golden rules. So always record in landscape, always name your digital file, make sure you're looking in the right place, and you've taken the time to learn your lines, if there are lines to learn. Because I see a lot of tapes, they're portrait, they're upside down. You don't have time to look at all. You might miss the best tapes because they're not formatted. You haven't got time to chase the things. So these are things I know casting directors who do it full time will just discount them because they haven't got time,
right.
if it hasn't come in. So you might have done the best audition tape in the world. Always watch it back. Always make sure you've done that due diligence. Lighting, you might have been at home putting a camera up here and you've just sent it in and the camera's fallen and you've just got, you know, a plug socket, you know, will break. It's a plug socket advert. But, I mean, I think the way I sort of, to remember it as well, I remember when I was an actor, I went for a commercial for Lockets, and in my head I thought, I've got this in the bag, and it was a sort of country gentleman in a tweed jacket with a cravat, and I remember, you know, going up on the train to London and thinking, I'm going to be the new face of Lockets, which I wasn't and didn't get. But I went into the audition room, and it was like Village of the Damned, the waiting room. It was 20 actors, all with tweed jackets and cravats, and it was a very silly audition. But and I think what a lot of people forget is that other people will be going for the role. You know, if you're not a name, it's unlikely. You know, if you're a name, you're not going to be sitting in a waiting room. You'll just be asked in. You'll be sent the script and read it at home, and maybe invited to lunch somewhere. But if you're, you know, a standard actor, as it were, that you're going in, you will just have to accept there'll be, you know, and there's the psychology of the audition waiting room as well. Other people, you know,
they're all looking at you going, could it be him? No, it's definitely me.
Everyone wants the job.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, that's a strange kind of atmosphere to be in. Everybody sat waiting for that job. It's very traditional. It's what you see on movies, isn't it, when everyone's looking at each other? Yeah. But it's just having confidence in yourself and your ability, and the fact that you've been invited there, like you said. Yeah. First of all, you're over the first hurdle, so you're good enough. So
you have a right to be there. And if you don't get the job, as I say, you never take it personally. I mean, of course, you know, when I was an actor, you do think, oh, I didn't get the job. But you know, at least you're getting the auditions, at least you're having that chance, and every audition is a learning curve. Some are good, some are bad. I know people who've done the worst auditions in the world and got the job, because it's never about the finished product. It's, you know, you've shot it on a film. It doesn't need to be high end with a studio and lights. As long as you can see and hear, that's all that we're interested in at this stage. We'll put all the magic in afterwards.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So you used to be an actor.
I did, yes.
So let's go back a little bit then.
Oh gosh,
it's not far to go back. Don't worry, I'm sure.
Yes.
What is your history in entertainment? Like, were your family in entertainment? Were they all actors?
I began acting when I was 2.5 in Old Time Music Hall. My first job was part of a music hall touring. So I was in a magic act.
Were you?
I was. So part of my parents, when they were actors, had done some work in America and went to see David Copperfield.
Oh my God, amazing!
Absolutely loved them, and some of the other big magicians in sort of in Broadway and things, and Vegas, and they absolutely loved what they saw. So they tried to replicate some of these big illusions and things. So Brilliant. As a child, my father used to cut my head off. Used to cut my sister in two, levitate my mother, just everyday normal, you know, upbringing. And I was part of a black and white minstrel show within the act, because it was the 70s. So that was my first sort of introduction to theatre. Was Old Time Music Hall, working with a lot of, you know, classic variety artists, so strong men. The guy used to throw me up in the air, and it was like about 5 minutes before he caught me, and sort of all those real sort of singing, dancing elements that my father brought together for this tour that went around the country. And it was a lovely, a bit like the good old days. If anyone remembers that series. So it was a sort of golden era that I was lucky enough to be part of.
Wow.
I worked a lot as a child, doing shows, tours, that kind of thing. My father was an actor, and so was my mother. He was in things like Crossroads and had his own show on BBC Two, and did lots of radio voiceovers, live television plays when they used to just the show would go live. I mean, Crossroads that he was in when it first started was that was all live.
Was it? I didn't realise that. No
all
way.
Live, you know, with the wobbly walls and homemade credits being moved backwards and forwards. So yeah, and then just continued to work my way through. I got into drama school when I was 17. Couldn't afford to go because it was I was from the southwest, and they didn't recognise that as a proper job.
Oh no!
So I went and did weekly rep for 2 years down in Sidmouth. So a different play every week. So I did that for 2 years. Worked in Southwold for Jill Freud and company. Did that for 4 years. That was 10 daily reps. So I had a lot of experience of doing. You know, so in a year I might do sort of 20 or 30 plays, which is great experience. I mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Really.
Yeah, play when you look at theatre, I mean, it's a different monster, isn't it?
It is.
It's a different language. For me, I found it really difficult to change from theatre to TV. Yeah. Like my first director always told me, I always learnt that when you're on stage, in real life, when you're sad, your natural reaction is to kind of just, you look down at the floor. That's what you do. Well, when you're stood on stage, you should never do that because people can't see your face.
No.
So you have to do this thing which doesn't feel right but looks fine, which is when you feel sad, you have to look up, and because everyone can see your face and the emotion, and you learn this language when you're on stage, and then you get in front of a camera, and it all changes. You know, these big movements, like if you say, I don't know, if you shrug your shoulders, it looks awful on camera because that movement looks so huge. And so it's a completely different language. So how did you go from theatre to kind of like TV work? Were you just brought up in that? Were you just able to adapt very quickly?
I think I sort of went through different processes. So I did bits of film and TV whenever I could, short films, and a lot of sort of learning on the job, really.
Right, yeah. It's the best way, really.
So I always took any job that I could within reason, whether it was a small, role or a larger role. I probably did sort of larger roles within theatre, touring, and so I did a lot of sort of number one tours and things around the country. Worked with some amazing people from sort of past sort of TV to people who just come out of soaps to people who are currently in soaps and things. So working with a really good range of actors from at all stages in their career, and particularly when I did rep as well, and I'd work with some amazing directors who would just want to, a couple of weeks, they'd come down, they'd direct a play in a week, then they'd go home,
Wow.
So we worked with some great people, and we'd had some guest artists coming down that would do bits and pieces. So as an actor, as you know, you were always learning.
Absolutely. Would you say then, for somebody that wants to get into TV and film or entertainment in general, that a good starting point would be to join a drama group and start on stage? Would you say?
Sure, definitely. And you, with film and TV, I mean, you can YouTube, you can a lot of kids are brought up by YouTube now, and they look at and it's a wonderful tool that was never there when I was an actor. You just had to learn it on the spot. But what you can actually do is you can look and you can see and you can work out, and I always say the best person to judge how you perform is yourself. That's why I say watch it back. I mean, I've been running audition experience sessions for about 20 years, so I've seen an evolution of children where you'd put a camera in front of them and they'd be like, it's this weird person in the room. Now children are so much more
it's all they
confident.
Do all day, isn't
it's
it?
all they do. They've got a better idea of where to look on the camera than I would naturally. So
wow.
It's very interesting. We're in a renaissance at the moment, and the only way is to go forward and to embrace all this amazing technology. And so there are actors who've done nothing but film and TV, and when you put them on a stage, they crumble because it's completely, if something goes wrong, there's no safety net. There's just you to get yourself.
They don't say
out.
cut.
They don't say cut. So I think for when you see actors that have come from film and TV, and they might be doing a guest spot in the West End and things, and generally they are pretty good. Yeah. But I imagine it's very scary.
Oh, it's absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's a different. Yeah, it's a very, very different monster.
It's easier to go that way than it in this way. Yeah. And the big thing I always say to children is don't employ additional actors, and I'll call your shoulder an additional actor. Yeah. Because if you watch yourself back, you'll see those tics. So a lot of kids sway. I said don't sway. Be still. Less is more. It's all about that intimacy of talking to one person, although you're being seen by millions at any one time. Theatre is out here, TV film is here. Yeah. And it's about that less is more. I mean, Michael Caine used to do a very good. There is a clip of a show that he did on YouTube. The whole thing's on there where he talks about screen acting, and he kind of nailed it really in his way about not blinking, about where your eyes are and how you downplay the emotion and even in action movies. I always say watch a big action movie. So, if someone's doing this, you're like you feel seasick.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you come in, and a lot of people sway when they're nervous and things. So it's all about that calmness and watching. And if they watch themselves back, I said if you record yourself 5 times, you will see 100 different things you didn't know about yourself. Now, some of those will be conscious, some will be subconscious, but you will learn so much. So do it. If you do nothing else, learn those things. Because it's, if you're performing, if you're giving a speech, to a group of colleagues or whatever. If you're on Zoom, you know, and particularly self-tape now, you know, where you stand on Zoom, you know, if you're standing back over here, you can't see you and things. There's so much more.
It's amazing, isn't it? Everyone has these kind of strange. I don't, they're not coping mechanisms, but they're almost like tics. I always said I used to train a lot of magicians in Spain, and everybody would have a thing they would do, especially when you're performing live on stage. For example, they would say, "Ladies and gentlemen, too much."
Yeah.
Like, that used to be mine.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do now is I'm going to need somebody from the audience. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to join in. And that was just my thing. I would just say, ladies and gentlemen, over and over and over again. Then I got onto camera, and when I started doing TV work, I noticed that the shrug of the shoulders was my thing. And I used to get, oh, God, they used to hate it. Cut, Matt, you're shrugging your shoulders. I can't help it. I can't help it. Everyone has a tick, don't they?
It becomes a thing, and particularly... if you're doing audio work or interviews, when you listen to them back, you'll hear certain words that you end up, your brain just fixes on a word, and I've said, you know, perambulate 17 times during this interview. Why? I've never used it in my life, but suddenly it's, you know.
Can I ask you, what does perambulate mean? What does that even mean?
I don't know. I plucked it from my subconscious. We'll have to use it 15 times now.
No, we'll do. That'll be in my next podcast. Yeah. So growing up then in entertainment and being on stage and screen, how on earth did you get into being like an agent? How did you get into helping other actors get their start?
I suppose I went through lots of different jobs. I think I've done pretty much every job in this industry. So obviously as an actor, but then I also like the production side of things. So I worked as a producer, director, writer. I've written my own shows and plays and things. So I would call myself a jobbing actor. I did any job I could when I could. You know, it's a sort of theatrical junkie, really. Any media, anything I could be in, anything I could do. I make my own films, you know, radio stuff, anything like that. So I did lots of different mediums that I enjoyed, and I had my wife and I have 2 children, so my wife was an actress also. And I think when the children came along, it became slightly more sort of problematic, sort of being away from home a lot. So we were both in a show together when we had my first daughter. So we toured the Highlands and Islands. And then when my other daughter was born, it became a bit more difficult. I would be away for 10 months doing a tour and be back on a Sunday. And I didn't want to miss my children growing up. So I retrained to be a radio DJ. I did a course up in London for doing radio, which I used to do quite a bit of radio shows and things, a comedy show, and I enjoyed that. And then I'd also started working for Stagecoach, doing these audition weekends where I would be the person auditioning all these children. And then as Stagecoach Performing Arts grew, the people who were running the agency said, "Do you want to take over?" And I thought, well, yeah, give it a go. Why not? And I never thought, that sort of nearly 15, 20 years later, I would still be, auditioning children, adults, and casting kids in shows and things. And it's certainly, I've seen a lot of children, a lot of faces over the years, and it's every day is different. No two jobs are the same. There's an element of repetitiveness within the job, but every show has its challenges, and it's exciting discovering that new talent, and it might just be new talent for one film, but the excitement calling up a child and saying, you've got that job in a film, you've got this.
Oh man, that must be so great, that moment.
I mean, I know what it felt like when I was an actor, and you get that call saying you've got the job, and you dance around the room, and it's that elation, isn't it? That finally,
I've done it. This is my moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
And that's what every actor wants, isn't it? So,
absolutely. Yeah. That must be one of the best parts of your job, being able to phone somebody up and say, listen, we liked your audition. I just want to say, you're in.
Yeah. It's that, and it's hard. You sort of, I think we're within the culture of, well, as you know, like X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, and the winner is, the parents just say, tell me. You can hear them shouting in the playground, have they got the job? I wanted that. I said, yes, they've got the job, and they're screaming at the top of their voice.
So great.
And it could be a small part, it could be, a major role in a feature film. I think children just like to perform, and they like to be seen, and they like to go on that journey, because when you're on a film set or you're working with theatre, it's another world. It is a bubble, but it's an amazing magical world that you enter into.
I've always said that this is what I find so beautiful about working in this industry. And this is something that people won't experience unless they do it. And for me, it's all about this. Yes, we're creating this beautiful story. Yes, we're creating a journey and something to take people out of their brains. And I love entertainment and I love magic and I could talk about it all day long. But for me personally, to be really selfish, the family that you create whilst you're working on a film set is unlike anything I've ever experienced. The amount of people that work on this job, when you see the credits on a movie or a TV show, you think, what do all these people do? And you don't pay them a moment's notice. Not really, but what's a grip? Who's he? What does he do? He can't be any. What's a gaffer? I don't understand. And then you realise when you're on a set how important these people are and how close you become during, you know, a 60-day shoot, a 90-day shoot, however long it is, you become a close-knit family. It's an amazing relationship you create. And then when you leave, that family kind of disperses and you might not ever see them again, but you'll never forget them. No. It's a really beautiful experience, isn't it? And that's kind of like from a selfish point of view, but that's my favourite thing about being on set.
One of the few jobs, I think, that you do where, you know, you'll see someone, you'll work with them, and then maybe 40 years later again you might work with them and things. I mean, kids that I was casting in stuff 20 years ago, you know, I'll get a call from a director and saying, oh, do you remember me? I was that little, you know, I was in Billy Elliot, or I was in this film, or Harry Potter or something like that. And you go, oh, wow. And because you can't keep tabs on everyone, but people do come back into your life through different sort of mediums and things like that, which is, you know, it's exciting. Wow. And it's the same with you know, you look at what other job would you get, like a 4-year-old having a job interview. What other jobs does a 4-year-old have to do an interview for? An audition is an interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
And 4-year-olds, they hold their own. They're amazing when they go into an audition room, and because nothing phases them.
Of course.
They're either like a bit shy, but generally they're very confident, and they'll run around the room and light it up.
Yeah, they have that simple mind when you're 4, don't they? I've always said for a magician, it's really hard showing young kids magic, because I could do a trick, you know, with like a plastic thumb that magicians use, right? Yeah. Sorry to expose it, magicians. Sorry. Yeah. But you have a plastic thumb, and you show an adult a trick with this plastic thumb, and they have no idea. You show it to a kid, and they go, "You got a plastic thumb?" Yeah. Like the way their minds work is so simple, and I love the way they see the world. So it's fair to say then, and we don't have to name drop, it's okay because it's very rude, but I know that you've helped a lot of children and adults really start their career, and I know they all want to thank you massively, but I would like to just say I'm going to name drop. Just from some things that you've done, because I think what you've done is amazing, and I just want to see if this is true or not.
Okay.
Harry Potter. Doctor Who?
Yeah, Doctor Who, yeah.
Just let you know if you need a new doctor.
Yeah.
Just let them know. Yeah, that's my dream job.
I think you'd be great.
Doctor.
Yeah.
And we're going to leave it there. So make sure you fill in the form below saying that that Matt Edwards should be the doctor.
Absolutely.
So am I allowed? Are we allowed to go through some of the stuff you've done? You tell me. So I know you've worked a lot with like CBBC.
Films galore, Hollywood movies, things like The Holiday, What We Did on Our Holiday. Lots of films of The Holiday, and I've done. The Crown.
Great.
Enola Holmes.
Oh wow!
Oh gosh, I mean, I have to say I've forgotten more films and TV and shows. Casualty, or everything, and you know, West End. Every West End show, I think that's ever.
Casualty must have been a really busy job. Every week we need somebody to fall off a ladder. We need somebody you're constantly casting for that. I imagine.
And live shows and events and things. I was lucky enough to do a couple of events at the Olympic Stadium with sort of nearly 1,500 kids, you know, performing a song at either end and things. So that was all good fun. So when you get calls like that and you think, yes, we can. I mean, when I used to work for Stagecoach, obviously we had sort of 50,000 children at our disposal. So if you needed a big event, you could muster a huge sort of pool of talent and things. And now I work with lots of different other sort of theatre schools and practitioners and things. So. I mean, I've worked across the board, and it's always nice things like, you know, when you do voiceover work and radio, and you turn the radio on and you hear one of your clients sort of just doing a voiceover of something and things. So it's very rewarding. I mean, I don't watch huge amounts. I mean, commercial casting is a massive thing, and I think for kids that's a great thing to do, commercials, because they just have just so much fun. And some of them, particularly the big rush for the Christmas commercial. I had a very good one a couple of years ago with one of my young actors who went out to Budapest and filmed a big advert for Sainsbury's, and he had an amazing time. And it was one of the biggest adverts that had been done for a while. And there's always this race about who gets the first Christmas advert, whether it's Sainsbury's or John Lewis and things like that. So, and it's always great to see that they really push the production values. They'll have a singer, big elaborate set, animation, and great fun.
What an experience!
A mini film, they'll shoot it in a week or something.
Yeah, so, of course, that's an amazing experience. Tarquin, I think what you do is absolutely fascinating, and again, I don't think people before this interview realised how in depth your job is and what it involves, and without you, a lot of the stuff we watch would look very, very different. So am I allowed to plug your company? If there's anybody out there, if there's any young children, if there's mothers that want to, that have an aspiring young actor or actress at home, or even if you're a little bit older like us and you'd like to get into the industry, please plug yourself and what you do, and let's get people in touch, because what you do is amazing.
Thank you. Well, I run, the company is Tarquin Talent Agency, and it looks after children and young performers. And then I also have the adult version of the agency, which is Tarquin Talent Management. And then my services as a casting agent, so as a casting consultant on all things to do with children in this industry. So if you want advice on licensing, and I run audition experience sessions, so people can just come along and just experience what it's like to audition in front of someone who knows what they're talking about. I'd like to think I do.
I think you're right.
All this time.
I think you're right.
And just give them wisdom, just give them advice, and let them see things differently. It's about teaching children in those sessions what other people are looking at. What they want to see, how they want you to behave and things. Because a lot of auditions jobs are cast sometimes from that audition room, but I said it's the moment you walk through that door. Because people know what they're looking for, and I think, wow, they look great, they look amazing. So it's all about how to behave. So I try and sort of instill, just my years of being in the industry, really.
And you have such a wealth of talent. I wish I had you when I did my first audition, because it was a nightmare. I walked in so sheepish, and I didn't realise how important that moment was. So anybody to have you on board would be so lucky, and I really appreciate what you do for the industry. And you're an amazing man. Tarquin, thank you so much for having a chat with me. You're a fascinating man. So there we have it, the incredible Tarquin Shaw-Young. Get in contact if you want to be in this industry, because he's the man to see. Anyway, that's all we've got time for here on Check 1 2. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week for another interview, but it's going to be hard to top that one. Thanks, Tarquin. See you guys soon. Thank you.